Okay, welcome to your asbestos training. I am Garth Haslam. Before we get into the class itself, I want to just give you a little bit of background on me, especially as relates to the topic at hand. Before beginning as a home inspector in 1993, I worked in the environmental engineering business for about 7 years. I got trained on asbestos remediation, among other things. I have my 40-hour certification and a number of 8-hour refresher courses. So, you know, I don't want to spend a lot of time on my background, but suffice it to say that, you know, I do have the training to speak on the subject. Since, of course, becoming a home inspector, I've certainly learned over and over again where asbestos can be found inside the house. We're going to talk about that in this course, where it's found, what to do about it, etc. So, give you some background on asbestos. You know, most of us don't really know where it comes from. It's actually a naturally occurring material. It is not manufactured in some sort of a warehouse or mill. It is actually a mined material. It's found naturally, and you've actually got to have miners that go dig this stuff out of the ground to make it available for use. And guess what? We actually use that stuff still. Its size is what makes some of its most important properties. So this is going to be a 3 to 20 micrometer width. And just to give that a comparison, human hair is going to be 20 to 200. So the largest diameter asbestos fibers are going to be about the same diameter as the smallest diameter hairs. It's interesting that hair actually goes from 20 to 200 micrometers. And just to give you a background there, a meter, of course, is a little bit longer than a yard. Divide that in 1,000, you've got millimeters. And you take that millimeter and you divide it by 1,000 and you've got micrometers. So that's what we're talking about here, is the mineral fiber is going to be about 3 to 20 micrometers. Now, asbestos actually has some very desirable quantities, which is why it was used, especially back in the 70s and before. It is very good for heat resistance. So as a result, you're going to have the uses of asbestos show up, or the needs for an asbestos type product show up in places where there's going to be a lot of heat. Now, me personally, I'm a bit of a World War II geek, certainly not an expert, but I like to watch those kinds of shows. And you see where, you know, for those of us who are not sailors, you think of a ship being, you know, the bottom of the ship just being one big open space, and that is not the case. It is actually divided up into many compartments so that if there is a fire or a breach of some sort, they can let that one compartment flood without sinking the entire ship. If we're protecting it from fire, we're going to want to seal each of these dividers with something that is fire resistant. And especially back in World War II, in that era, many times that was an asbestos product because it is so durable and so fire resistant, so heat resistant. So, you know, that is where we get a lot of the asbestos that we are, exposure that we're dealing with now. You know, the people that are dying now, in many cases, those people were the ones that were spraying asbestos back in 1940 or 1960 or even the middle or late 1970s. It is used, I mentioned shipbuilding, you have railroad, there's asbestos, of course there's a lot of heat in railroad, and so you'll see it there. In addition, you think of brake pads. You know, obviously when you've got the brake that's trying to slow down a car, there's going to be a ton of heat there, and asbestos actually is a good product for doing that. So I had heard rumors that asbestos was being used and then it wasn't, but as of the latest research I have done, asbestos is still available on brake pads. So, you know, I'd been told by somebody who should have been in the know that it was not, but based on the research, it's still available for brake pads. There are applications still, even now, where you have asbestos that is still being used. The next section, we're going to talk about the regulations associated with asbestos and who uses it and who doesn't and under what categories.